Very good evening, friends. Meeting after a big gap with the philosophy session. We have started discussing about new chapter from H.A.Robert, that is chapter number 22, this classification. From this chapter onwards, Robert has tried his level best to explain the miasms in detail. The concept of miasm with his own perspective, all details have been mentioned by Robert. That's why learning Robert's philosophy related with the miasm is feast for the homeopathic students and practitioners, and their concept becomes quite clear with the help of those chapters. So first he has started with the introductory chapter, that is disease classification, and how Hahnemann have arrived to the disease classification, the way the Cuvier has classified the zoology and the Carl Linnaeus has classified the plant. In the similar manner, during the similar era, Hahnemann was there and he classified the diseases. No one have tried to classify diseases, and there was havoc over there in regarding understanding of diseases. Hahnemann took this task and he classified diseases into the four different types. As the Cuvier has classified it into the four types, the Carl Linnaeus has classified it into four types. Hahnemann also classified the diseases into four different types. We are there on page number 183. Let us start with the same paragraph. In this study of disease, he separated all disease conditions into four great groups before mentioned. The mechanical conditions were easily detected and classified. To the three remaining groups, Hahnemann gave the term miasm. So first he has classified diseases into two important parts. First, the cause is external because of some mechanical cause, because of poisoning, because of something external, because of accident. That he has classified as adynamic. And what remains to be dynamic? Again, the dynamic he has classified into two types, the acute and chronic. Here he is not dealing with acutes, that's why he has not considered about the acutes. Then he is dealing with chronic only, and chronic he has classified into again three important parts. First is iatrogenic diseases, that is caused because of drugs. Number two, false chronic diseases due to some exciting cause. And third, true chronic diseases. And true chronic diseases are caused because of the miasms. That is, the three important basic miasms are there. The manifestations of chronic disease conditions, which Hahnemann called miasms, were so designated by him for want of better term. In fact, in the German language and in Hahnemann's day, the word miasm properly defined the idea of Hahnemann had in mind. In the development of modern diagnostic terms and the English language of today, this designation seems to be out of place and word of explanation is needed. So this word miasm, which Hahnemann utilized, was the word which he has utilized in a different manner. Actually, it is a dynamic disease producing noxious agent which runs from generations together is a miasm. This was the concept behind the word miasm. But it was wrongly interpreted by the modern science, and that's why there are many meanings happens to be there. People have mentioned them, and that because of which a lot of confusion has have been aroused. According to the common definition, a miasm is defined as polluting exhalation or malarial poisons. It is obvious that word in English does not interrupt intelligently Hahnemann's meaning. Therefore, the residual poisons of the syphilis and gonorrhea that have become, according to Hahnemann's classification, the miasm of syphilis and psychosis, might better be termed the stigmata of syphilis and gonorrhea. The effect of either virus affecting the primordial cells casts a stigma or blight upon the developing cell that is nearly ineffaceable. The same stigma may be laid upon the constitution of an individual by acquiring disease if the virus is not thoroughly eradicated from the system. So there are many meanings which you can get in dictionaries regarding the miasm, but it was wrongly interpreted, and that's why there are many meanings. For example, it has been called as the miasm of syphilis means miasm of syphilitic stigmata or stigmata of syphilis, stigmata of gonorrhea in case of psychosis. Such meanings were taken out. But actually, whether really Hahnemann wants to say about miasm in such a manner, it was not. The word psychosis, coming from the Greek word meaning pig, has found a place in modern dictionary with several definitions, one of which is follows. Hahnemann's dyscrasia, Hahnemann's term for the constitutional effects of the gonorrheal virus. Thus, we see that one of the accepted definitions of the word psychosis is with that which Hahnemann had in mind and which he called alternatively the pig-wort disease. So if you go with the psychosis word, it has been explained over there. Psychosis is nothing but pig-wort disease in dictionary. But actually, the concept behind the miasm was more than that in Hahnemann's mind. At least some of the meaning is mentioned in the terminology of psychosis. In many instances, it was very easy for him to trace the venereal relationship of the disease, and he soon found it easy to recognize the branding of this group. At first, he classed these under one head, but later divided venereal miasms into two classifications, the syphilis and psychosis or gonorrhea. So, Hahnemann have classified the chronic miasms into three different types. The first variety, the venereal, under which there was a psychosis and syphilis, and another non-venereal, that is the sora. So this is basically the classification of miasms, basic classification of miasm. And up to here, he has mentioned about the classification of diseases and classification of chronic diseases. But actually, we have to learn what exactly mean by the sora. What is the presentation of a sora? How it reflects in the human being. And hereafter, what he explains has a lot of meaning. Everyone should go into all those details, and my suggestion is that at least you read it twice so that it will become quite clear in your mind regarding the concepts of miasms. Now he starts with sora. However, the great majority of disease conditions remained unclassified. For 10 years, cases were studied, patients were closely questioned, and even history was called upon to diverge the course of diseases through the centuries. Through endless difficulties, Hahnemann traced these hitherto unclassified diseases and gave to them the name of Sora. Thus, this word Sora, which Hahnemann used to denote the third great miasm, is defined by the modern medical dictionary as follows. So, Sora was the last to be discovered. First, he has discovered the syphilitic miasm, then he discovered the psychotic miasm, and third one he discovered was the Sora. First two were in venereal, both of them were venereal, and what remained whole cases where you get common history of suppressed skin eruptions or each leading to form new internal diseases to which Hahnemann labeled by the name of Sora. But same thing has happened. It was not original English word Sora. It was originally from the Hebrew language. It was Sorat, T-S-O-R-A-T. Later, it was converted into English by the name of Sora. Meaning of Sorat word was going inside from outside. It is a groove which goes inside from outside. And Hahnemann considered the same name because here the disease also transforms from the surface to the inside. And that's why he used that Sora terminology in the English in order to define the miasm. There were different modern medical dictionary meaning were there. He has mentioned over there. Number one is scabies, number two psoriasis, number three Hahnemann's term for the is dyscrasia, defined as the parent of all chronic diseases, skin diseases, neoplasms, insanity, etc. It was similar to two, though of more extended application than the herpetidiasis of French writers. And definition adds T. leprosa or psoriasis. Funk and Wagnall dictionary gives Sora, a pathol, a itch, or some such similar skin disease. Number two meaning, that is itch mite. The derivation is Latin and Greek, but it is rather Arabic in origin. Coming through the Greek and Latin, the original word was sorat. This is MCQ for the students. What was the original word for the Sora miasm in Hebrew language? That is Sorat, T-S-O-R-A-T, Sorat. So there were different names given to the miasm. Different peoples have talked about different with their different understanding, but what Hahnemann expected was meaning behind that, going from surface to inside the say skin eruptions, to which he labeled by name of Sora. Interpretation of this Hebrew word sorat conveys clearly a thought of Hahnemann had in mind. Sorat, a groove, a fault, a pollution, a stigma, often applied to the leprous manifestation and great plague. So this was very clearly clear meaning which he has mentioned over there related with the word Sora, and it is a groove going inside from outside. This is the meaning of actual the Sorat word. It is meaning of original Hebrew word that we must regard as the basis for the term covering this constitutional debate. In the light of modern comprehension of these conditions classified by Hahnemann as Sora, we may not doubt but that original meaning of the Hebrew word had greater significance than we have understood. A groove, a fault. With our growing knowledge of the so-called deficiency diseases, we are coming to realize that the lack of certain elements in the system or the inability to assimilate them from the foods is the great common denominator of almost all so-called sonic conditions, plus a lack of balance in the equilibrium of the health that manifests through the hypersensitivity of the impressions, functional disturbances, and patient's recognizance of disturbance that varies from consequences to neurosis. So here he mentioned exactly that correlation between Sora and modern knowledge. From modern point of view, there are many diseases which are called to be a deficiency diseases. And if you compare the deficiencies of different elements, the constitutional elements and their presentation, those are very close to the soric miasm. So, from according to the H.A.Robert, he has defined one chapter, last chapter in the soric miasm was Sora or deficiency. And this is his hypothesis that in from modern point of view, the deficiency disorder are nothing but the soric disorders, and that he explained it with relation with the in relation with the periodic table, and he has explained his hypothesis on the basis of that. So here he starts while explaining the Sora, what exactly mean, from where the word has came, and what is the exact meaning of the Sora. Then he says, the vast majority of the diseases of the earth came under this great classification, which has been called the mother of all diseases. And Hahnemann found that there was a traceable relationship between all these chronic manifestations and many various plagues which had troubled the people of the earth since the most ancient times, manifesting themselves in various ways, such as ancient plagues of Egypt, leprosy. At one time, France alone had over 2,000 homes for lepers, and the itch poison, which swept Europe in the latter date. In many instances, Hahnemann found there was a close connection between such grave infectious disease and patients with stubborn recurring symptoms. So, Hahnemann came to this conclusion with this specifically those chronic skin conditions which were persistent during Hahnemannian time. Many people were suffering from the leprosy, it's so-called leprosy, or another name for it was the itch dyscrasia, or called as scabies. Leprosy was caused because of the Mycobacterium leprae. This is modern understanding, but at that time it was not like that. It was like that. It was considered to be one of the form of itch caused because of mite, and there was very severe itching. And if that itch is suppressed because of some local applications, it enters inside, producing its symptomatology in some of the organ, depending upon the susceptibility of that individual. And that is what is Hahnemann labeled by the name of SORA. Hahnemann became convinced that these recurring symptoms owed their existence to this chronic miasm, which he called SORA, and that of itself, this condition could never be cured. While the acute manifestations may subside and be quiescent for a considerable period, the chronic state that causes the acute eruptions of the skin symptoms never dies, and until it is met with the similar remedy. So, what Hahnemann have observed regarding this SORA, that these are the diseases which are stubborn diseases, which never disappears by themselves. Mm. There is no question of self-recovery. There was no question of healing themselves. And here, if you want to treat them, it requires an aid, a similimum, a perfect deep-acting antisoric remedy. And then such disorders will be get cured. So it was not like an acute disease which has capacity to recover itself and come to the normal. So that's why in acute diseases there is period of prodrome, there is period of progress and period of decline. But in chronic disease there is no period of decline. There is only period of prodrome and period of progress. There is no question of declining. Hahnemann found that this form of disease was first made manifest on the skin as a skin infection or eruption. This was its natural place, but here the natural manifestation is susceptible of the suppression by many forms of treatment, such as lotions, ointments, mineral baths, surgical operations with the removal of the organs, and anything that tends to obliterate the manifestations on the surface by seemingly curing the external symptoms. It is on the surface that it naturally thrives, and here it will do the latest harm. By suppressing this constitutional state becomes more manifest in the train of distressing symptoms, so long as the skin manifestation is quiescent and may be caused by may affect any part of the body. So here he is explaining exactly what happens in Sora. Sora expresses on the skin, on the external most layer. Generally, those eruptions which happens to be there in Sora are itch or called as scabies. Those are vesicular eruptions where itching is so prominent, followed by a scratching. And because of which those eruptions which have a scab at the top of the eruption is the typical scabatic eruption. And what was the line of treatment? Line of treatment till today, it is the just applying some lotion, some ointments over those eruptions, and because of which the pathol has been transported from the same less important organ to any important organ from inside. So disease is going from the skin, so from the surface to inside, and this is what is going from outside to inside. The word that is sorat meaning, and that's why Hahnemann utilized the same word in English, sora, going inside from outside for his miasm. Hahnemann found too that many chronic elements which are enumerated in pathological works under the distinct names originate, and few exceptions in this widely ramified sora. All skin manifestations and their conditions, almost all adventitious formations such as swelling of the glands, sarcomatus and carcinomatous tumors, deformed bony structures, hemorrhagic tendencies, all suppuration, functional disturbances, nutritional disturbances, all of the acute disease manifestations. All these conditions Hahnemann traced to these source and classified under the head of SORA. So there were many varieties of disorders which develops because of the suppression of the skin eruption. When it enters from outside to inside, it affects any system depending upon the susceptibility of that human being and ultimately reflected in the disease. So it can be any malignancy, it can be any tumor, it can be any growth, it can be any ulcer, anything. When it enters inside, it used to produce or affect the organs. Specifically, more at the functional level, where pain is the most important factor in psoriatic miasm. The structural changes generally you never get in the psoriatic miasm, they are the product of psychosis and syphilis. it is better to stop over here on this note. Tomorrow we'll continue with the rest of the chapter, and tomorrow we'll finish this chapter so that the some part of the Sora will be finished in tomorrow's session. My suggestion, go through this chapter again so that you'll understand the concepts clearly, and it will be rather simple for you to reach to the Mayasam. So, and from tomorrow onwards, we'll take lecture at 6 o'clock instead of 5:45. So, Organon session will be at 6 o'clock from tomorrow onwards. So that's all for today. Today evening, we're going to meet with any short remedy from fourth year syllabus at 8:15. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.